2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, welcome to this week's edition of Grok Talk for Saturday, June 4th, 2016. We are your mobile-ready conservatarian talk radio, and, as we like to say, armed with more than just opinions. We have Max Abramson is due in as our guest host. He's not here yet. Neither is Mike. I'm the only one in the studio. Jim Rubens is expected for, I believe, 9:40, and then a little later in the program, we are going to talk to John Zimmerak about some cultural issues. So I want you to stick around for that. Don't forget to check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio. You can also listen on my YouTube channel. Just look for Steve McDonald. And we will have the podcast up on GraniteGrok.com as we always do. So we'll get started in a minute. Mike, go ahead and get all that garbage going, and I'll just kill some time here. So, lots of things happening in New Hampshire this week. It's been an interesting week. The one that caught my eye, and this was reported by the Concord Monitor, of all places, Allie Morris at the Concord Monitor. Democrat Governor Maggie Hassan says she isn't using taxpayer money to finance campaign trips she makes across the country in her bid for U.S. Senate. You're not on, so don't talk. Headsets. Just do your work. We're good. But records show, because people can kind of almost hear you talking in the background, but they can't really, so records show, and this is, again, Allie Morris, Concord Monitor, records show Hassan's state-funded security detail is racking up thousands of dollars in salary and overtime costs while accompanying her to political events, and the campaign is not picking up the tab. Now, I'm not sure what's so difficult to understand. Obviously, the campaign is obfuscating a bit. They're saying, oh, yeah, we're paying for their hotels and their flights, but they're not necessarily paying for the overtime. In the 44 days, Hassan said she campaigned out of state between February 2015 and March 2016. Fry and Vestal, these are the state troopers who are her bodyguards, made a combined $42,000, including overtime pay, according to the Department of Safety. But citing privacy and security concerns, the department declined to release the troopers' hourly time logs, making it impossible to calculate exactly how much the state has paid Fry and Vestal to guard Hassan while she campaigns outside New Hampshire. Spokesman Aaron Jacobs said the campaign goes above and beyond state and federal election requirements by paying campaign travel expenses for the troopers that guard Hassan. That has nothing to do with it. And then there's this list of, well, these other states have governors who go and do this and go and do that, and they don't pay as much as we pay. That's not the point. If taxpayers are paying for salary and overtime for public employees while you are campaigning and you are not paying for it from the campaign, that is news. If it's not a big deal, I think it is. I think it's a very big deal. We've had this problem before. We've had presidential candidates come here and taxpayers for campaign events. And taxpayers in these small towns are forced to cover salary and overtime for police and anybody else, fire, who is required to be present while they're, if you're going to talk, put a headset on. If they're going to, good luck with that, by the way. You people don't understand what an interesting spectacle it is to watch somebody try to bring up the video for the live stream for Ustream. It's always interesting. There's a couple of reboots. Often the camera doesn't connect right away. It's pretty amazing how you see what we do for you people. Isn't that amazing what we do? It's a lot of work. Anyway, so we've got this overtime. And like I was saying, you have the Barack Obamas and then some of these other candidates, sometimes Biden or maybe a Clinton or two, will come to the state and a local town will be responsible for fronting the bill. And that is a taxpayer paying for campaign expenses. Now, a lot of these campaigns, they just don't pay it. We've had a few instances where we've made enough of a stink that some private donor has covered those costs. And that's fine. It's okay as long as it's a campaign donation. That's okay. You can do that. We don't have a problem with that. But taxpayers are not supposed to be paying for campaigns. And that's exactly what this is. Governor Hassan has at least $42,000 in pay that we're aware of that has not been paid for by the campaign according to the Concord Monitor. Pay it. Why don't you just take another illegal contribution from, say, the pipe fitters union or somebody else? You've done that a few times, and then we can talk about that instead. But at least you will have paid, this overtime. And you're going to have plenty of money. We know you're going to have plenty of money. 44 days outside the state already. We know you're going off to meet the stayers of the world, the millionaires who are pushing extreme left-wing energy propaganda at us and trying to get rich off it. We know you're doing that. So get them to give you a little money and have them pay it. It's not our job to pay for that. Next up, Portsmouth Mayor Steve Marchand. He is suggesting that, he's saying that he will accept voluntary state spending limits in his gubernatorial campaign. He is running for governor. And he has urged candidates in both parties to do the same. Apparently, the spending limit prohibits a gubernatorial candidate from spending more than $625,000 in a primary and $625,000 in the general. Candidates accept or decline the limit when they file their official paperwork. Marchand, who is expected to file Wednesday, says he's accepting the limit in the spirit of reducing the corrosive influence of big money in politics. And that's the sentence. That's why I picked this story. The corrosive influence of big money in politics. Now, Mr. Marchand, are you going to go talk to Senator Jeanne Shaheen or Governor Maggie Hassan about the corrosive influence of big money in politics? Because they're going to raise millions and millions of dollars from outside sources. They're going to have millions and millions of dollars in super PACs. And if I'm not mistaken, that would be the corrosive influence of big money in politics. I'd be interested to get your input on that. Marchand is facing executive counselor Colin Van Ostern, who has his own story in this stack here, and businessman Mark Connolly in the Democrat primary. And, of course, we have several Republicans running, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later, I suspect. Let me get to the story on Van Ostern. Here he is. Okay. Van Ostern Crows seeks credit for the sun coming up. This is an editorial. I think it's the New Hampshire Union leader. Executive Counselor Colin Van Ostern is required by law to file a report on his gubernatorial campaign's receipts and expenditures by June 22nd. Yet, he is trying to convince New Hampshire voters that he is voluntarily disclosing his receipts and expenditures 2 months early. Shame on him for such shallow puffery. Under New Hampshire's lax campaign finance reporting system, I don't know if it's lax or not, I think they expect too much as it is, candidates for state office don't have to disclose where they are getting their money nor how they've spent it until the end of August. Who really cares? As long as they report it, right? It's not really any of their damn business. Money is speech, and I have a huge problem with all these, as long as you're reporting it, and if they're not reporting it, and we have a mechanism for following up when they're doing a bad job and lying about it, that's fine. They shouldn't have to file every freaking week. I mean, that's a lot of money to pay people to do that stuff.
We will have the video shortly. Skip's PC is riddled with vicious and nasty malware. One piece is called McAfee, which shut itself down, which shut itself down and won't let me connect to Ustream unless I reboot the PC. And the other is Windows 10, which keeps insisting it wants to be installed.
And if you have Windows 10, McAfee will try to install itself on your system if you haven't already had that little adventure.
I have the solution to Windows 10. I have a nice little piece of software or stopware that blocks it completely by taking out the registry settings.
Cool. So anyway, Van Ostern is making a big show promising to file his report. He actually has no choice. So what he's doing is he's saying, look at how responsible I am. Look at what a good doobie I am. All he's really doing is just following the law. So if you go to GraniteRock.com, or more importantly, find Susan Olson on Facebook. She posts all kinds of great stuff every day and every night. Lots of links, cute comments, biting sarcasm. Excellent place to get a lot of news, especially about New Hampshire. And I call it the Susan Olson news feed, and it's so much information that I can't look at it all. I just can't. There's not enough time, but sometimes I find some great stuff in there. And I may have found this there. I don't really know.
We need to feed some of that directly into Granite Grok.
Well, we do, and she's working on that. She's put a few things up. I know she's trying. Let's see what else we have here. We have Maduro. Venezuela's President Maduro likes Bernie Sanders. He's going to back him. The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro believes Bernie Sanders would be headed to the White House if the U.S. held free and fair elections. This is from Venezuela.
That would be like saying a blood bank was supported by vampires.
Right. During a television broadcast on Tuesday night, Maduro, who has expressed support for Sanders, a self-described democratic socialist in the past, called the Democratic candidate our revolutionary friend, and said it was only an archaic electoral system that is 200 years old keeping him from the presidency. Actually, it's the corrupt Democrat Party superdelegates that are keeping him from being the nominee.
Which just shows that communism corrupts absolutely no matter where you find it.
Because the Democrat Party is as close to Maduro as you're going to get in this country. Yay, Max is here. Cool. Maduro's comments, heard on a video translated by Reuters, were less complimentary of the presumptive Republican nominee. Donald Trump could win with the electoral system they have in the United States, Maduro said. And you know why? Because Donald Trump is using a force for change hidden in U.S. society. Neither campaign responded immediately to requests for comment. They write, maybe Bernie can go to work for Maduro's administration when the 2016 elections are over. He certainly would have. He would be in very good company.
Wonderful.
Very good company. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has jumped on the transgender bandwagon Wednesday when it had. The formatting. This is awful. When its House of Representatives voted 116 to 36 to move forward with a bill that legally replaces the concept of biological sex with that of gender identity. So the state of Massachusetts is going to outlaw biological sex, basically, as a term in public. Hi.
How are you?
We may have to reboot our internet connection.
No, don't worry about the video then, because I can't go through that again with the audio. Just skip it. So if there's no video, there's no video. That's okay. I don't mind. I don't even like the video, I'm going to be honest with you.
It can't reach your stream.
Well, anyway, we are streaming live on Spreaker, and that's all I really need. So anyway, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you two?
Good. Good to have you here. We're going to move on to some of your stuff because we have a guest that I didn't know we had until this morning when I looked at the Google Calendar and saw Jim Rubin's name penciled in there. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Surprise. Why don't you put your headset on? Again, don't talk unless you put your headset on.
Since Max is the guest host, I thought that would be a good fit.
On the bathroom bill, of course, I just got back from the Libertarian Party National Convention in Orlando, and it was a show.
Where the almost naked candidate for chairman of the party danced across the stage.
I was 50 yards from that. He said he did it as a dare. Everybody hated him down there because people put their life into the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement.
And he made you all look small. And himself, I suspect.
Well, he had we saw him dancing on stage, and that was not too far. He put the music on, and then he starts pulling his shirt off, and somebody near me said, "Oh, he's going to strip down." And I thought, well, how does he know that? And sure enough, the guy takes his shirt off, and everybody's yelling, "No, no!" He starts taking his pants off. It was not the high point. Now we have,
and of course, that's the only thing anybody's reporting. Naturally.
Of course. Now I got a video. John McAfee also ran for president down there.
The guy who invented the malware we were just talking about.
Well, but he sold
off which he has made a good killing, and he now lives somewhere in Central America as a refugee from whatever it is he's paranoid about.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I read that.
Well,
anyway,
but I guess they actually have had people apparently try to kill him. Mm-hmm. But his other problem is he tends to travel through poorer areas. And here's a guy who sold his company, McAfee, 15 years ago, McAfee Software, for $100 million. Mm-hmm. So here's a guy with a lot of money, and plenty of people have reason to rob him. We've had people, I was just in the Philippines, and they have tourists go down the wrong alley and disappear, or they wake up in a tub full of ice-cold water, and they've got a couple of kidneys missing. They've got organs missing. So some of the parts of the world are not as safe as as we're accustomed to,
Correct.
especially if you go into the wrong neighborhood. Now,
not even as safe as Chicago. I mean,
the libertarian position on pretty much everything, including the bathroom bill, is get the government out of it, and that's a pretty consistent position. In fact, it was the Democrats. A lot of people forget the first legislation and the first regulatory actions on bathroom bill issues came from Democrats. I think it was Steve Shurtleff who had the bathroom bill just a few years ago.
Bathroom bill who ran for
would have allowed transgenders to go into either bathroom. I think that was Shurtleff. Then it was Obama administration with the OSHA and the Department of Education ordering schools and businesses to allow anyone into either bathroom as long as they say that they gender identify. Well, you can't tell from a brain scan. Any sex offender can just say that they gender identify as a woman and walk into the women's room.
Well, and that was the problem with the Obama mandate for all public schools, was that you couldn't ask, you couldn't question, they didn't have to provide proof. There was no, you might as well, anybody could just walk in there. And so, one of the stories that I wrote about this week that's somewhere in this pile was that woman with the ACLU who quit because her and her daughters were in a bathroom and a couple of men walked in, and her daughters were terrified, absolutely terrified. They just didn't know what to do. And she's like, you know what, this is not the right way to do this. We need a different answer. We can't just let men walk into the ladies' room. And
real transgenders. There's a man who's something of a recovering transgender. He said only about a third of 35% of transgender are real transgender. 65% are going through developmental issues and psychological issues and have confusion issues and whatnot.
And again, they're really not the problem. The problem is the people who will pretend to do it to get access.
And, the real problem is the government forcing its way on people. What conservatism is about, as I understand it, is it's being realistic about human behavior. And, I've got a couple of Democrats seated on the left of me in the State House, and I've got Republicans on the right.
Well, that worked out.
And every single time anyone comes up with anything, the conservative mind, the very first thought that comes to the conservative mind is, okay, how are people going to abuse this?
Yeah.
The only thing that makes a libertarian different is libertarians are also realistic about the behavior of government officials. So you put people in power, you make them prosecutor, police chief, what have you. Libertarians are just realistic about government agencies, government power. Some of it comes from a historical understanding, but a lot of it comes from dealing with government agencies, the DMV, the EPA, the IRS, federal prosecutors, and seeing how overboard they go sometimes. So as far as the bathroom bill is concerned, I think, it wasn't a problem until politicians started getting into it. Mm-hmm. And what I heard from most libertarians was there's no need for the government to get into this. I mean, most transgender people, they knew which bathroom to go into without having people yell and scream.
Right. I can't think of a single story anywhere, right wing, left wing, anywhere, about some actual legitimate transgender person being in a bathroom and somebody freaking out about it. I don't remember any of these stories until the federal government got involved.
Because they would either go to their natural bathroom or, in the case most common, of men dressing up fairly convincingly as women, the ones that actually really did want to be or to look like women, would go in the women's room and nobody would notice until they disappeared inside the stall when they couldn't see anyway. And as long as they behaved like women, nobody would care. The people we're worried about are the opportunistic predators. And what government has done is effectively sanction the ability of opportunistic predators to go into the wrong bathrooms, as opposed to people who are trying to be a little daintier than real life, perhaps.
Yep, and that's really pretty much been our consistent opinion on the thing. We're going to take a really short break. We're going to come back. We're going to go through some legislation, a little update. After that, we'll have Jim Rubens in the studio. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is Grok Talk.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. Grok Talk is brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com. Check us out at GraniteGrok.com. Go visit CNHT.org. They've got a big picnic coming up July 9th. Their big fundraiser of the year. Go to CNHT.org and check it out. Get information about tickets. I think the location is still up in the air, but I know we talked to Ed about that last week. And don't forget to check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. You can find us anywhere. We are mobile ready. The website is mobile ready. Spreaker is mobile ready. There is absolutely no reason why you can't listen to this program anywhere or anytime. So,
put an app or put one of the streaming apps on your mobile and just tune in. And,
yep. Or you can just go to the website and look at the player and go play. And it'll play through the Bluetooth in your car. You can listen while you're driving. And
if you're a Democrat, we'll suggest that you tune in and flip out.
Yes.
Because it'll make you do
both
that.
Hands on the wheel, please. Okay. So we've come to the end of the legislative session, minus the special session, which will be coming up. Let's talk about what an interesting... Well, we don't have a ton of time. We have 20 minutes, so let's pick and choose our targets.
Okay, the ones that I think that most people would be interested in, we had two very important gun bills. One is constitutional carry came up, and I think Hassan has already either vetoed it or she has threatened to veto it.
She did veto it, yes.
Good gravy. This is the second time she's vetoed it. Now, there was some confusion. There's another bill that is worded in a very similar way. Constitutional carry, if you have a lawful right to openly carry a firearm, you could put on a jacket. So it's a put-on-a-jacket bill. Mm-hmm. Put on a jacket while you're waiting 2 weeks for the police chief to decide whether or not to deny your pistol revolver license out of sheer spite. And we heard of over a dozen different cases in hearings and elsewhere about cases where police chief after police chief after police chief denied people a license out of spite. And the Democrats' response was, as usual, oh, well, people can fight it in court.
They're wasting taxpayer dollars.
And our argument was that's a waste of tax money, and half the time you end up not getting it anyway. And the New Hampshire Supreme Court has said, okay, well, we're not a shall-issue state anymore. We're a may-issue state. So there was another bill. And I had a difficult time explaining this to colleagues because legislators are not the brightest.
Bulbs in the pack.
Right.
Not this bunch.
No, good gravy.
Well, we kind of like them that way.
You get your $100 worth. All you can do is use libertyballot.com and, be sure to vote in the September 13th primary. People don't realize that's coming up. You say primary, they think, oh, I voted for Donald Trump, or I voted for Bernie, or something.
No. The most important primary in New Hampshire is for all the state offices and statewide offices, and that is September 13th this year.
And county, and almost every good Republican is facing a primary, frequently against Democrats who are running as Republicans. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge problem having to get the word out to Republicans to say you've got to vote Republican or conservative or liberty or what have you, but you've got to vote for the good candidates in September. Otherwise, we get lousy, wishy-washy candidates who just vote with the Democrats, and frequently they are Democrats. A lot of people think that Jasper just is a Democrat who runs as a Republican, which brings us to, so I spoke on the floor and I said, on not constitutional carry, but the shall issue bill. The New Hampshire Supreme Court changed us from a shall issue state to a may issue state. And then they said, well, we've always been a may issue state.
So the Supreme Court has effectively rewritten the Constitution and the legislation.
Yes, without our consultation. So I spoke on the floor and I said...
Because if they say officially that this is a may-issue state, then a lot more towns are going to start giving you a hard time.
Correct. Now, shall-issue states, John R. Lott Jr. in his book, More Guns, Less Crime, he found there are 3 categories of state and city. Shall-issue states had the lowest crime rates: Vermont, Maine, so on. Formerly New Hampshire had the lowest crime rates. May-issue states had higher crime rates because you have fewer people with guns, and police chiefs like to disarm victims. A lot of them are, pushing the same old agenda. And then you had gun control states, and the gun control states, New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Illinois, they have the highest crime rates. And the cities, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Nolens, Baltimore, the 5 or 6 really strict gun control cities have by far the highest crime rates in the country.
I just wrote a post last night. Chicago had 66 gun-related murders in May, which is the highest since 1975 for that month.
And 69 shootings the Memorial Day weekend, too.
They had
I heard
lots of shootings.
69 murders. I didn't know it was all shootings.
No, 69 shootings, not all of which resulted in death.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been over 1,308 shootings in Chicago in 2016. 250 or so of them have resulted as homicides.
And this isn't just a problem in the United States. All over the world, countries like Belize, Brazil, Ukraine, Russia, Honduras, Nicaragua, Jamaica, Britain, Australia, when they disarm people, violent crime rates go up. Criminals come in, criminals become more active, organized crime becomes more active. There's nothing to stop.
We should make an informative video that shows people because right now in New Hampshire, you can carry a loaded weapon unconcealed on your person. Okay. Now, most people can picture that. Okay. You can also carry, that's a loaded weapon. You can carry an unloaded weapon. That means you can carry the weapon and a clip or a magazine, a loaded magazine, not in the firearm, on your person, concealed. And that's perfectly legal.
I need to get a copy of that ruling just to carry around with me.
You should, because you can carry concealed if there's no round chambered and the magazine is not in the weapon.
I was aware of it. I just
and
need
the minute
to get a
you
copy
take
of
it out and load it, it's not concealed, and therefore it's legal. So people need to understand the differences. The only difference is, all we're saying is, since you can already carry it, and you can load it and shoot it, the difference is putting a coat on. You can still put a coat on and not have the magazine in. And I don't know if people really understand that that's all that's required. I mean, what we're talking about, the governor vetoing nothing.
Put on a jacket bill. That's what we've started calling it.
Yeah.
That's what I said on the floor, and J.R. Hole also said that on the floor.
If you untucked your shirt and it covered your firearm, you'd be breaking the law, even though you're legally allowed to carry that weapon.
Yeah, it's a felony. Holding a knife to a woman's throat, raping her, threatening to kill her whole family, those are felonies. But walking into the post office and forgetting that your gun's still on your hip, whoops, that's a felony. You've got anything that involves firearms. The Democrats and rhinos want to make it a felony. They want to make everything a felony.
Is the post office a gun-free zone? It's an
federal land.
Oh, okay.
It's holy ground, federal holy ground.
Good gravy. So there were 2 more very important bills. SB 481, of course, you know of Certificate of Need. It's cronyism. It's hospitals using the state to protect themselves from free market competition from other hospitals, but only other New Hampshire hospitals. So we finally repealed that. The governor didn't veto it. That takes effect in July. However, they came up, the Baconator and the son of Baconator. Well, we've been calling this, the son of Certificate of Need. SB 481 is the son of Certificator, and it draws a 15-mile radius around the 13 smallest hospitals and requires HHS to make sure that almost any new licensed medical service within those zones, not just new hospitals, be certified not to have material effect on services those hospitals provide.
Does this include abortion clinics, by the way?
Well, no, of course not. But what it probably covers, is the
convenient med,
all the convenient med, Walmart's, quick clinics, CVS's minute clinics, urgent care centers.
Health Stop. Yep.
Because all of those places essentially are a way of taking stress and cost off the emergency rooms and giving the public a choice of walk in and pay for stuff that's not fatal.
Right. So
the problem with SB 481 is it violates the state constitution. Part 2, Article 83 says you're not to have any government-protected monopolies.
Unlike, except for all the ones we already have.
But it's
Anyway.
it's unconstitutional, number one. It's corrupt. And, as usual, all the Democrats and rhinos voted for SB 481. So SB 481 passed. Unfortunately, we fought it on the floor.
Do we have anybody with a lot of money who would be willing to sue all the members of leadership? Wouldn't that be fun? I mean, I don't know if they can do it. I'm just suggesting it as a possibility
Well, you know
for
what
violating their constitution.
You know what
rights.
I was thinking.
They should be thrown in prison.
Yes,
What
they should.
I was thinking is we need a
Leadership.
We need a well-funded class with a couple of members in one of these towns that thinks they're allowed to be May issue, and to sue the town into bankruptcy intentionally to make an example of
Well,
it.
that has to happen. Like we talked about Michelle Lavelle's case last week, where she had to sue the town and the chief, and they went before the judge, and the judge said the chief was ludicrous, it was ridiculous, it was whatever they said. I haven't talked to Michelle about it. I just heard it secondhand last week on the program. But, I mean, he denied her out of spite, just like you said, had to take her to court, waste town taxpayer dollars because the chief refused, and the judge just kind of threw it all out. He said, "You're out of your mind. Why did you refuse to give this woman her permit?"
And this
her
is
license?"
because they asked questions which were not on the state form, correct?
There was an addendum added to the pistol revolver license form, and he wanted extra information that's not required by law. She refused to provide said information, and he rejected her application. So she took him to court. And the judge is like, "Can't ask for this. It's not in the law."
Yeah, and that's how it should be.
And that happens all over the place. Now, you said a couple dozen at least. There are all these towns where these chiefs, and we've had Ed Nail on all the time, talks about these little chiefdoms where these guys set themselves up and become the little emperors of their little fiefdoms, and they think they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
Oh, ready to jump to the next bill. SB 464, establishing a statewide drug offender program. We had after we approved the budget, a whole series of these extra supplemental funding bills. This one's $2.2 million. Another one passed that was $5 million. But the big one in controversy right now is SB 45, which I mentioned earlier.
Is that the $1.9 million or something like that?
$1.5 million. Little bit of a backstory. Democrats and rhinos are trying to buy off the support of the law enforcement lobby. And Jasper, of course, is in their back pockets. And their view of politics is that the state exists as a tool to steal your money. They don't say steal, but they believe that the state is a revenue-generating machine to enrich them and advance their job security and their
agenda.
$138,000 a year pension for this police chief, $145,000 for this police chief. It's a kleptocracy, but they swim in it like fish swimming in water.
We are live now, by the way, Steve.
Oh, we are? Good.
Yeah.
I can
three reboots, the removal of the Microsoft virus, and the final bursting into life of the McAfee firewall, and it's running.
McAfee threw on some pretty amazing parties. In fact, as I was walking out, he was getting everyone onto the dance floor. They had a dark room, and the light show was amazing. He hired these dancers. They came in. There was amazing music. McAfee, I got to meet him. He's going around meeting everyone person to person. He's a really, really cool guy. One of the coolest guys I've ever met in person. And I think the only reason he didn't get the nomination was the last couple of debates, he was just a little moving around from podium to podium and just had a little too much energy in him. But I think McAfee had the best name recognition of any of the three major candidates. Austin Peterson, of course, was running. And he might have gotten the nomination except for the fact that
he was a bit disconcerting.
Yeah.
The Energizer Bunny
as-
routine
Well,
didn't
he's
sound
also
as focused.
He's also a paranoid conspiracy theorist as well, right?
Right, but that doesn't automatically
that's no
disqualify
barrier.
you
That's no
from
barrier.
getting
No,
elected
and in
to
his case, the
public
state-
office.
And in his case, the state may well be out to get him.
It may be, and he might be right, and it's certainly out to get some of us.
Oh, yeah.
Come on in.
Yes. Grab a seat.
So SB 485 was 1.5. I testified on the floor against this. Now, it passed the first time. It came back. They threw some more things in it, and it got defeated 159 to 160.
Mm-hmm.
And Jasper said on the floor, if this had been a tie vote, I would have voted for this. And you're not supposed to say that as Speaker, because in the House of Representatives, it is an absolute dictatorship in the back. It's under control of the Speaker of the House. That's the problem. It's under the control of the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
And so it's a Jasper-tatorship, except that because he's in the back pockets of the law enforcement lobby, the Police Chiefs Association, police unions, corrections unions, prosecutors, prison industry. It's basically it's the police. It's the po-po. So it's a po-tatorship. And you don't get representative democracy because the largest swing voting bloc is also very much tied to the prison industry and the police chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not voting to give them their $145,000 a year pension, if you're openly questioning their pension and their detail and their overtime and some of the things that they're doing, sexually assaulting women, if you start talking about some of the things that they like to do with some of the little perks of office in some of those bad police departments, then they start a little whispering campaign against you. And, of course, you saw what happened in my case, and the police have admitted now in my town to some people that the whole case against me was just pure retaliation for speaking out. But they've done this to a lot of other reformers. Whether or not they actually did anything illegal, we don't know, but David Wood, David Lovejoy, Gary Wheaton, a whole number of others who voted against the police pensions and voted against their police detail and were openly asking a few too many questions suddenly found themselves with criminal charges brought against them, people with dash cam bills and body cam bills. And, of course, I had a bill in for random steroid testing, and the Criminal Justice Committee didn't like that at all.
It's interesting. I think anybody who's listening right now and thinks we're crazy, you need to get involved in local small-town politics. Join a group that specializes, like CNHT, in dealing with municipal government. And within a short order, a small amount of time, you will discover that there is corruption in your little town. And that it's been there for years. And that there are dirtbags who will come and get you. It's just the way it is. Once I started at NHTR, New Hampshire Taxpayer Radio, and I joined CNHT, and I started spending every week 2 hours a week with Ed Nail. Embezzlement, corruption, those chiefs and the fiefdoms, all that garbage. It's everywhere.
No bid government contracts, and you get the grandstanders in every town who yell and shout and scream, "How dare you question the police?
And
You're against all police. You're against the schools. You're against the schools."
And when we talk to Jim in a couple minutes, we'll find out about how the establishment GOP is not his friend because he's running against their girl. Anyway, we got about a minute before we break for Jim. And we got anything else real quick we can fit in 60 seconds?
You know what? When I was on my town's budget committee, I would go through these things line item by line item. And sure enough, $220,000, $20 per square foot for roofing, for the Garland roofing scam. This was one of the things that I exposed while I was on the budget committee. If you get a chance, everybody warns you, hey, go run for budget committee and you'll get into it and you'll see it. It's one of the most important things you can do for the taxpayer. And Garland turns out to be a company that's under indictment by the California Attorney General's office. They're gouging all these towns and schools, and they're offering payoff scholarships, travel, timeshares, and condos, and all kinds of other things to get them to go along with these overpriced roofing projects with a quote-unquote 40-year warranty that once you get it turns out to be a 40-year high-price service agreement. And
this reminds me of that energy efficiency company that started that brouhaha in Wyndham.
Are you talking about Solyndra?
No. There was a company from Texas that goes to public schools and does gets these contracts for like $500,000 to do these energy efficiency things.
Energy audit to save you money, but they charge you a hell of a lot up front.
Yeah, for doing things like turn the lights off when you're not in the room, and it was really stupid. Anyway, we'll have to revisit that at some point. All right, yes, there are these companies, and they are coming to your states, and your local boards are just going, oh yeah, boom, let's rubber stamp that. Here's $500,000 of your money for garbage. All right, we will be right back with Jim Rubens. He is running for U.S. Senate, and we want to talk about it. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. All right, we are back. This is an appropriate song for what's been going on in Washington. It's called Too Much. Alrighty, welcome back. Thanks again to CNHT, Ed Nail, the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Go to cnht.org. They got a picnic coming up July 9th, first Saturday after the 4th of July.
Location to be announced.
Location has not yet been announced, but I think they have something locked down. They just need to finalize it. All right. Time to move forward. New Hampshire has a senator. It needs a different senator. Let's see. Is this you? That's you.
I've been a state senator, but we need a different U.S. senator. No doubt about it.
We need a different U.S. senator.
Yeah.
Jim is known for lots of things. You might know Jim for battling corporate casinoism for many, many, many years. And I must say that my first worry when you stopped doing that was that they were going to pass a bill, a casino bill, and they haven't done it yet. A lot of other people have gotten up and started fighting that, and so far, even with this legislature, we've managed to keep it from happening.
Yeah.
The other thing that he's known for that you may not know is SB 2. Which is basically the secret ballot bill. It used to be the only way you could vote for anything in this town was to go to a town meeting, stand in front of all your friends and neighbors, and tell them you didn't want something they wanted.
Yep.
And so SB 2 allowed you to vote in a voting booth on a ballot so that you could vote secretly, and they couldn't intimidate the crap out of you.
and it also meant all-day voting so that working stiffs could actually vote at the beginning or end of the day.
That's one of the reasons I ran for state senate back in 1994. I ran in a fairly liberal district, and I had to explain to people the advantages of being able to walk in 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and vote yes or no in the privacy of a voting booth on the new fire truck or on the police station or the teacher union contract, because the old way we used to do it in the state, you'd show up, you'd raise your hand voting against the union contract, and your kid would get kicked off the football team within you're talking about local corruption. It's an example. And so I had to go out, and I'd never held office before, and I decided in 1994 to run against the Senate president, a sitting Senate president. Say, Jim, this is so stupid. You can't defeat the second most powerful person in the state. And I explained to people why I was in favor of school choice and why I thought people ought to be able to vote in the privacy of a voting booth at a time convenient to them. And people liked those ideas. And I went down there to Concord, right here in Concord, and I got both those things done in my first 2 years in office. And that touches you on your last subject, which was local corruption.
Correct, and that's the most important one because people don't realize that it's the same thing. The teachers' unions, it still happens at town meeting because we all still have town meeting. We have town meeting to decide what's on the ballot.
You have the deliberative session, and we were aware as reconstructing Senate Bill 2, what is now called Senate Bill 2, of that problem. You still have to show up. And I advise voters, show up at the deliberative session.
Because you won't have anything worth voting for.
You might not have a choice if you don't. Yeah, you can vote no, but you might wind up with yes. Your no might become yes. The default budget might be bigger than the budget you hoped for.
Which has, in my town, has not been the case for a couple of years. But for a while there, you'd see it. You get the sample ballot, and you'd be like, ah! people are going to vote for this.
Right, and Max has been on his town budget committee and has seen the corruption firsthand. As Skip was on his town budget committee and was not popular as a result.
Yeah.
So, all this stuff happens. But the biggest corruption, of course, is in Washington and the money that Washington spends and how it uses that money, which it steals from us to coerce our state governments and town governments into oppressing us. So they basically steal our money and use it to further the oppression.
Yeah.
It really is like a mafia racket. So, and I get all of that, and I agree with a lot of what you're here for. We have disagreed on a few things too, but
well, let's talk about this Senate race.
So let's talk about the Senate race. Why it's necessary to challenge. Why only you stood up, which I found astonishing. I thought there were several potential candidates out there, and I applaud you for taking the courage to stand.
Yeah.
And what your platform is.
Let me start. Actually, you were talking about gambling. I was down in Salem 2 nights ago, and Salem was a tough place for me in 2014 when I ran for U.S. Senate. I was the leading guy opposed to the casino down there. Well, now they've given up, and the land is sold. The owners of the property have sold it. It's now going to be recycled into some kind of commercial use.
Something useful.
And it's going to be useful.
Tax generating.
And there's going to be a tax generating use there. And of course, they peppered me with questions about casinos because the folks in Salem, wanted it. But I turned the room around 2 nights ago. I got people coming up to me, volunteering. And you know why? Is because I describe what I'm about to describe right now. And I'm going to start with a little bit of history because people don't know me. Okay, because I'm Jim Rubens from Hanover, New Hampshire. So I got up here. I went to Dartmouth College. I was a chemistry major, and I had gotten through about 3 years of my college career. I had finished my major because I was good. I won a math prize in high school and a debating prize, by the way, which helps in politics. And my parents got divorced, and the money was gone. And I went back home on vacation during this period of time after the divorce, and I found the refrigerator empty. I had a brother and 2 sisters, and my 2 sisters were out babysitting. They'd take their bike down, and they'd get their babysitting money. They'd buy food, put it in the refrigerator. It was hard times. So I left college, and it was during one of those Arab oil embargoes. For those of you who are old enough to remember the OPEC Arab oil embargoes, it was rugged in New England. There were bumper stickers on the back of cars that said, "Will the last Yankee to leave New England please turn out the lights?" It was over. I could not get a job. I had a lot of knowledge about chemistry. What good did that do? And so I couldn't get a job, so I went to work as a dump picker. Back when there were dumps, people would back their trucks, and they'd back to the dump, and they'd light that on fire, and you'd have over the edge of the dump, you'd have all the charred remains, you'd have refrigerators, and I would go down there, and I'd collect copper and brass and bronze. I had a bicycle, because I couldn't afford a car. I'd put the copper and brass into the bike rack in my car. I'd drive it to the junk dealer on my bike, and I was able to earn $40 an hour back at the time, which was phenomenal. And I was able to amass enough money to buy my first commercial real estate property, a sort of beaten up 3-unit kind of apartment in a tough part of town in the Upper Valley. And I upgraded it, added more apartments, and I got into investing and starting businesses. I started 10 businesses. I invested in a lot of stuff. I invested in a company that went public at $2 billion. Some win, some lose. And I'd basically done that for about 20 years, starting and running companies. I know how to run companies. So then this 1993 comes along, and it was one of these turbulent years. It was the Ross Perot period, take back our nation and all this stuff. And I decided to, along with 3 other people, we decided to have a meeting and talk with Get Local, because we were national. So let's get local, because we weren't getting anywhere national. Bill Clinton got in. So he says, let's go local. And we decided to interview the Senate president, who happened to be our local state senator. And I decided that the guy didn't know what the heck he was talking about. So if he doesn't know what he's talking about, I can do that job. I'd never thought about running for office before. So I decided I'm going to run right there. I'm going to run for state senate. And I won. And I made some big promises. I promised all-day voting, which is now called SB2 voting. By the way, voter turnout is up 5 times in the state because of that. I promised to do charter schools, and I got the charter school law passed my 2nd year in office. One of my favorite stories is the top testing school in this state is the Academy of Science and Design. It's a STEM school in Nashua, New Hampshire.
I know people who go there.
Yep. And it's attracting young families to come into New Hampshire because it's high-quality STEM education. This is math, science, engineering, etc. And it operates at 1/3 the cost per student of our typical K through 12 schools.
We just had a vote, House
Yeah.
Bill 593 last year.
Yeah.
We only managed to get 25 Democrats. I'm
Yep.
glad that we got 25 Democrats
Which
to
is
approve
great.
funding.
Yep.
Because it was the extra $1,000 a year necessary. We bumped it up to from $5,400 to $6,400.
Right.
It's
That-
just enough to keep the charter schools open.
Exactly.
And it's also a benefit to the taxpayer because Seabrook's schools cost $16,000 a year per student. Winnicott costs $22,000 per year per student.
Right.
And 40% of those charter schools deal with kids who are struggling, and some of them would end up in special ed in $30,000 to $60,000 per year programs.
Yeah.
So it's a huge charter schools are a huge benefit for the kids. They're
Yeah.
also a benefit for the taxpayer.
And it
that's
shows-
why the teachers unions fight against them.
Yeah. But there are teachers, for example, there's a charter school that is heavily founded and formed by teachers over in Durham, New Hampshire. And the teachers like it. They're willing to work, and I know this is controversial, but they're willing to work for lower pay. You know why? Because they have autonomy in their classroom. They love the idea. They're not dealing with all of the bureaucracy that
administrative
comes
overhead.
rolling down from the federal and state levels. They can be teachers, and it works very, very well. Parents are choosing it. It's saving tax. So it's showing this is where we are right now. These issues showing how Republican core values. We believe in limited government. We believe in dispersing power down to the lowest level. We believe in freedom of choice. And these examples show how our values not just are abstract, but they make people's lives better. We can solve problems. We can save money and make people's lives better. So here we are. Here we are in 2016. Okay, we've got Congress polling lower than toenail fungus and hemorrhoids. Okay. We've got the anti-establishment candidates winning on the left, Bernie Sanders, and on the Republican side, Donald Trump in our primary right here in February, won both of them by landslides in New Hampshire. And what that's telling you is the voters here in New Hampshire are fed up to the gills with business as usual in corrupt, bought and paid for, a crony capitalist Washington where Republicans break all their promises. They come out, and so here I am. I'm running against Kelly Ayotte, okay? I worked to get her elected in 2010, okay?
Most of us did.
A lot of us, because...
We didn't want Paul Hodes.
Yeah, well, Paul Hode's been good. But I worked for her in the primary, okay, which was controversial at the time. And so I helped get her elected. She won by 1,700 votes in the primary. So she broke her promises, okay? It's a big thing. She promised no amnesty, okay? She gets down there, drinks the Kool-Aid, whatever they're serving down there, and goes ahead and votes for the Gang of Eight, open borders, and this is what I call it, drive down American wages bill, okay? That's number one. She broke a big, big promise, and our country is not safe because of that. That open border is insane. We got pictures. I had a press event 2 weeks ago. We got pictures, hidden cam with local folks who are monitoring the border, helping border control, voluntary folks. You're watching drug mules walk across in single file with big backpacks, all the same size. They're drug mules, and they're coming across Kelly Ayotte's open border, killing New Hampshire citizens with fentanyl and opioids and heroin, okay, from Mexican drug cartels. The open border. People are coming across. We don't know what else is in the backpack. Could it be bomb-making materials? Could terrorists coming across that open border? It's wide open. It's insane, okay? She did that. She promised to be a fiscal conservative, right? Did anyone here say she was going to be a fiscal conservative?
I do recall that.
Oh, yes.
She voted for the Cromnibus and the Omnibus bills. These are the last two budget bills. 2014, 2015, $1.5 trillion of additional national debt that we can't, and it's all, current spending, loaded on the backs of taxpayers in the future. They're not going to get any benefit. If there's anything that's at the center of republicanism, at the center, it's fiscal conservatism. And she's abrogated that. She promised, thirdly, and this is the other biggie, she promised to be a constitutional conservative. And she's gone ahead, and I'm going to give you just 3 examples. She is the one of 2 Republicans who are behind Obama's EPA global warming regulation. 600 some odd pages of hyper-complex regulation that do nothing to fix global warming if you happen to believe in it. But what it does do is it drags the states down to Washington, and it has a federal takeover of your choice for what kind of energy you want to use. My approach is get rid of all the subsidies and let the market decide, and we're going to get energy faster that way. She went ahead and voted for this thing called ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. That was last year, okay?
Yep.
And for folks who don't know
familiar.
what that is, unconstitutional for the first time in national history, the federal government Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, has the authority to approve or disapprove of every state's education plan. Every state now has to go to Papa government and get its Now, if you like federal control, there's no call for this in the Constitution, but if you think the federal government is going to fix local education, try Goals 2000 in Common Core. Or No Child Left Behind. Doesn't work. And then, this is the straw that broke the camel's back for many folks. She voted against Mike Lee's amendment. This gets a little bit in the weeds. I don't know if you folks have heard about this.
We're in the weeds, so.
You guys are in the weeds. HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, now has the authority to whip us using our own money and tell us what kind of demographics we need to have in our towns and cities. They've taken over local zoning. Mike Lee put up an amendment because this was an executive order from Obama to put this into the HUD budget. Mike Lee put an amendment, clean vote, up or down, to defund this HUD AFFH rule.
And she voted to support it.
She voted to support Obama's federal takeover, de facto federal takeover of local zoning. Okay, she promised to be a constitutional conservative. There is no authority in the U.S. Constitution for the federal government to run our local zoning policy.
We've had national guests.
So
you folks have talked about this?
Oh, yeah.
We absolutely have.
People who say, well, we've got to vote for the Republican no matter what the establishment. You know what they're telling me? This is why there's only one person running against Kelly Ayotte. It's only me. Jim Rubin's here, by the way, if you don't remember the name. Because
JimRubins.com.
JimRubins.com, yes, if you want to get involved. And we need people involved. The establishment has told me over and over again, privately, we have told her we don't like her votes, but we have to suck up to her because she's got the K Street money. She's got a wall of K Street money, and they've told me that's all that counts.
Which is why the state party is corrupt.
It's corrupt.
And does not do what the people want it to do. Why it has a platform for which it requires no adherence whatsoever on the behalf of the Republican legislators and senators, and of course our U.S. senator. And it's a complete travesty.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. So
rant off.
Right. We got 2 minutes left in the segment.
So I'm running. Here, the short and sweet is.
Can we do a holdover, or we got too much to talk about?
We can do another 20. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm running because Republicans believe in our core values, and I'm running so that we have a Republican in the U.S. Senate who will vote for our values and our principles, and they're good. They mean a lot. And the other thing that I need to tell folks is, and again, I have to contradict the establishment. They say only the K Street Kelly is going to have the money to defeat Hassan. False. I've been down to Washington, talked with these folks, and the control of the U.S. Senate is at stake. And they've told me in no uncertain terms that I'm qualified, that I know what I'm talking about, I can wrap my mind around issues. They've told me the big millions will be there for whoever the nominee is in our primary. And what this means is that there'll be the money to defeat Hassan. Number one. Number two, it's up to the Republican voters of this state to decide if you want a Republican voting Republican in the U.S. Senate representing our state, or a Republican voting with a 23% conservative voting record, Kelly Ayotte, representing us in the United States Senate. We, primary voters in this state, have the choice to determine whether we're going to be a Republican Party that stands for anything anymore.
You going to stick around for another 20 minutes, or are you going to go? Okay.
Love it.
Well, we will keep Jim over and talk about some more issues. And then after that, we have John Zimmerak from the stream coming on to talk about some cultural stuff, a little history. We're going to have a little lesson. And, of course, we still have our guest host, Max Abramson, at the end of the table.
You'll vote for Max's for less taxes?
Aha! That works.
That's awesome. I love that. All right.
Libertarian for governor. Yes, no? Thinking about it?
Being asked to run.
All right. Well, maybe we'll visit that in our last segment. Who knows? We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. If you have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Some of the content on this program is shared under the fair use provision of U.S. copyright law, found free in the public domain, or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com. Grok Talk. We are your mobile-ready broadcast anywhere, anytime, on any device. Check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Ustream. No excuses. Learn something exciting and different from conservatarians like those of us at GraniteRock.com. All right, we are still talking to Mr. Rubens, who is running. Jim Rubens is running for U.S. Senate. He is challenging sitting U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte in a Republican primary. It's just him and her, so it's not a very difficult choice. You don't have to flip a coin. Kelly sucks. I'll say that. He doesn't have to say that. I'll say it. So anyway. All right, so we're going to talk about a few more issues. We have John Zimrak coming on at 10:20, and then we're going to go back to legislative updates with Mac. So anyway, let's keep going. There's plenty more to talk about as far as that goes.
Let me get into the fourth area. I talked about she's broke her promise to be a fiscal conservative and voted for Cromnibus and Omnibus, $1.5 trillion in debt. I'm just rehearsing this stuff. She promised to vote against amnesty, votes for the Gang of Eight open borders amnesty, drive down American wages bill. And by the way, she's big on tripling H-1B visas. Have you folks talked about that issue at all?
We've talked about visas, but maybe not specifically
H-1B.
what she's
Even the Gang of Eight wouldn't support.
Gang of Eight had H-1B visa.
Not tripling.
Gang of Eight would have tripled legal immigration from the present 1 million a year to 3 million a year. That's something a lot of people don't know about. Now, what does that do? What does it do when you take $1 million a year, which is probably too much right now because it's driving down wages, and bring it to 3 million a year? Who could be behind such a thing? The objective of that bill, that Gang of Eight bill, is to drive down American wages.
No. It's not George Soros. It's the employers who want
lower wages for Americans,
expensive, high-skilled labor at a discount, and because the people they want to bring in. It used to be you would bring in well-educated Europeans. Going back decades in. Immigration policy was about bringing in people that could contribute, people that had a clean bill of health, a clean criminal background check, and the resources to support themselves and not take money from the rest of us as they got going. The problem that you have here, and nothing against the Indians and Chinese, are some of the most wonderful high-tech people I know, but they can be hired for less because they are coming here to get started. And, more power that they want to do that, but not that they should do so in such quantities as to drive down the wages of people who have paid to go through college to become highly skilled to do those jobs.
Unskilled, low-skilled people coming in to get welfare. There's a case where a drug dealer went to a hospital in Mexico. I guess he was shot in the foot, shot in the leg. It turned out to be life-threatening. He hobbled across the border into the U.S., came to an American hospital. They can turn away Americans. They couldn't turn away an illegal immigrant. If you want to get medical care, you can't go in as a veteran. Don't show your veteran's card. Just speak with an accent and say that you just landed here from Russia or something.
that people, illegal invaders sneaking across the border, can
Can't
get better medical care than vets. Intolerable. Okay. So, and the third thing, she broke her promise to be a constitutional conservative. We talked about the federal takeover of local zoning, local takeover of local schools. But the other issue that I'm talking about, which is really new ground for Republicans, I'm talking about Kelly Ayotte being a cheerleader for Hillary Clinton's failed nation-building wars, the most recent that we know of being Libya and Syria, Iraq, that have spread terror. ISIS is operational in 8 countries, that have made the Middle East more unstable, more chaotic, help create 60 million refugees who are going all over Europe. They're coming to America, destabilizing us, and have made Americans less safe. Okay, so Kelly Ayotte cheerleading Hillary Clinton's failed nation-building wars. Now, I'm cracking open a new issue for Republicans here because it's important. Because we have a national security strategy run by procurement pork advocates, of which Kelly Ayotte is one of them, and I'm going to get into that, that is not making America safe. It's screwing our veterans. Let me give you an example of this. In a recent vote on the Armed Services Committee that Senator Ayotte sits on, she voted for the defense budget. Okay, it included $10.5 billion, and this is just one of the pieces of pork, for the F-35 bomber. Now, you're not going to hear a lot of this from Republicans because we're supposed to be for every kind of defense pork there is, right? False, because we're broke. Number one, we're broke. Number two, our preparedness and readiness in our military is substandard right now. Because there are a whole bunch of K Street lobbyists out in the hall behind the F-35 bomber, and there aren't a bunch of lobbyists out in the hall for veterans and for readiness, preparedness, maintenance, troop readiness.
For adequate training, adequate fuel for the training,
Exactly.
adequate spare parts for the existing kit to keep it flying.
Bullets so you can train properly. You need flight time. You need to do this stuff to have it. So when you're voting for $10.5 billion for the F-35 is a stark, raving failure. It does not fly. There was a dogfight. It was released on WikiLeaks, a dogfight between the F-35 and the 30-year-old F-16. 17 dogfights, the F-35 lost every single of 17 dogfights. It lost in a simulated dogfight against the top Chinese bomber right now. The F-35 was designed, one purpose, it's designed to spread pork into as many congressional districts as possible. And if you believe in national security, which she claims to, you do not vote for pork. You vote for every single dime in that budget to make America strong, to defend America. And you do not support wars that lead to more chaos and strengthening ISIS. Okay?
Peace.
Okay? You do not do that. Okay?
Peace through strength, strength through peace.
Right.
We need the strongest military in the world. There's no question about that. Don't doubt me there. But it means that every nickel is spent on what keeps us safe. And we have a strategy that keeps us safe, not Hillary Clinton's strategy.
Yeah. So, wars I could support. The original war over Kuwait because an innocent nation was attacked, although there may be some backstory even to that. An initial strike on the Taliban for harboring bin Laden
In Afghanistan.
and an attempt to clean up,
Yeah.
but not nation building.
Right.
And then going back into Iraq, ask the Christians of the Middle East how much good it did to depose Saddam Hussein. We may have got rid of a brutal and nasty dictator and a tyrannical regime, and there may indeed have been people tortured in prisons.
Right.
But the number of Christians who have been disenfranchised or just plain murdered as a result of the ethnic cleansing there, and again in Syria, Bashar Assad's a right jerk, and very nasty guy. But you know what? There were Christian communities in Syria, and they're being cleansed. How about Egypt?
By ISIS.
Yeah. Losing track of my leaders there. I'm probably if I say Sadat, that's going back too far. But the guy,
we did
Hosni Mubarak.
Yeah, right.
Again, not a particularly nice regime, not a particularly pleasant country in lots of ways, but the Muslim Brotherhood were kept under control. The Christians were free to live their lives, and religion wasn't a problem. And again in Libya, sure, Gaddafi was a nasty guy, but you know what? We'd given him a good scare. He
was in the box. He was not threatening the United States of America.
We'd already given him a good
person, don't question about it.
Yeah.
Tyrant, murderer, blood on his hands, but he was not threatening the United States of America or our people. So,
nor was he threatening his neighbors.
And this is the thing that's important here. Our military leaders, and I have this documented on my website, jimrubens.com, our military leaders were clearly warning Hillary Clinton and Kelly Ayotte, do not get rid of Gaddafi because it will lead to to a failed state. It will lead to terrorists taking over. They predicted exactly what would happen. Ditto with Kelly Ayotte and Hillary Clinton's drumbeating to get involved in the most recent intervention in Syria and Iraq. Our military leaders, and I've documented this on my website, our military leaders warned that if you do this, you will lead to the formation of a caliphate. An uncanny prediction by our Pentagon leaders against what Hillary Clinton and Kelly Ayotte did here. So bad guys, clearly, but it's worse. Their interventions have made things worse, not better. And Americans are less safe, not more safe. And this is something we got to debate.
Yeah. Ancient history, civilization began in the Fertile Crescent. Now what we have is a crescent of nations fertile for the caliphate, which is a much worse situation to be. So I'm with you. Peace through strength, absolutely the sharpest and best weapons, but not the pork weapons.
Right.
And a very carefully calibrated role over where we are in the world.
Right.
We need to be out there,
absolutely,
because there are shipping lanes and everything else.
Yes.
But we don't need to be fighting everywhere.
Yeah. So one more thing I'd point out, we do need to keep us safe from ISIS. And the first thing that I recommend, and this is on my 14-point, I've got a lot of 14-point plans to replace Obamacare, balance the budget, I've got a million of them, but there's one on how to keep America safe. The first thing we need to do is defund ISIS. How do you do that? You tell our so-called allies in Pakistan, and this is the Taliban, you tell our allies, so-called ally in Saudi Arabia, the world's leading funder of terror ideology is Saudi Arabia. We now know that Saudi Arabia funded, the government of Saudi Arabia funded most of the terrorists who killed almost 3,000 Americans on 9/11. We know this now, okay? The redacted document.
And you tell the wannabe
tell
caliph,
Saudi Arabia, if you're going to be our ally, stop funding terror ideology. Stop funding the madrasas over the world that train people of Islamic faith that they need to hate the West and hate America. Number 2, Turkey, NATO member, so-called ally. They keep an open border in north of Syria, southern Turkey. Of course, they want to kill the Kurds. We know that Turkey wants to kill the Kurds because they're worried about that. But they are Erdogan's son, he's the ruler of Turkey, is the person who runs the pipeline through which the black market, by which ISIS gets a lot of its money for oil, human trafficking, and antiquities trafficking. It goes through Erdogan's son. We've got to tell Turkey, our so-called ally, stop funding terrorism. Okay, you begin by starving them.
Right, and
we're not doing that.
And note that Obama's armed forces deliberately are told to lay off the oil convoys which are going from ISIS into Turkey.
So Russia bombs the trucks, Russia, okay. This is where I'm with Trump. Okay, I endorsed Trump back in February, love it or hate it, I did. He was indicating more than any other candidate, which is very important to me, a reasonable degree of restraint. He said, "I'll talk with Putin." You know why he talked with Putin? Because Putin has a better strategy to put ISIS in a box, cut off the money, bomb the oil trucks. He did it. We wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're our enemy. Russia is good. We got problems with Russia, but we're talking about the complexity of the world. There are other means other than direct warfare. These neocons are angling to get into
It's a lot cheaper for us if Russia does that.
Yeah. Plus, we have Russia and the United States have some common interest. Their dictator has a common interest in keeping his corporate cronyism. So he's got his Swiss bank accounts. We know that. Okay, so he has an interest in keeping that game going.
And he has his Muslim problems as well.
He's got the same Muslim problems we've got. So there are some. So we use diplomacy, we use economic leverage, we use cultural forces. There are tools that America has short of shooting war with Russia to keep us safe. And so that's why we need restraint. And I call it
we need to go shooting with Putin, not at Putin.
Yeah.
The vast majority of Muslims that I've found in America are peaceful people. They get along with everyone. The last few times I've been in the Middle East, it's the same thing. The vast majority of people there are just business owners, workers. They don't like the terrorists. They don't even view them as Muslims. They just view them as terrorists. They live in a Muslim country. Most of these Middle Eastern countries and some North African countries, almost everyone is Muslim. They don't view them as Islamic radicals. They just view them as murderers, psychopaths.
Yeah.
The word Muslim doesn't even come into it. It's just they're surrounded by other Muslims, and here are a few psychos and murderers and people who just want to blow up civilians and harm people. Dick Marcinko, I think, put it best. He said that terrorism is too good of a word for him. It glorifies them too much. He says they're just cowards. They're just murderers who hide behind a cause. Some of them hide behind religion. Some of them hide behind an attack on the great Satan, or attack on Israel, or attack on Israel's allies. But really, they're just psychopaths. They're just cowards who like to hurt civilians.
Right. So,
like the Democrat Party.
Yeah. So yeah, Exactly.
All those violent protests outside of Trump events funded by, left-wing causes.
I like to say sometimes, when I was in Manchester, there were all these nice old ladies who thought that the Democratic Party was still the party of Harry Truman and John F. Kennedy, and they talked about the whole history of it. And yet we see up close that the Democrat Party's slowly been hijacked by this cartel of opportunists, lawyers, bureaucrats, the good old boy network, the modern left, not the old left. And the modern left doesn't seem to care much if people are thrown out of the on the street. They don't seem to care if they tax people to death. They don't care if...
I don't know who said it. Called them the neocons for communists. Neocons.
Oh, the neocom for communists?
Yeah,
it's
the
like
new communists.
It's like communists. It's like communism without any concern for the proletariat.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I get that. So anyway, so Jim, let's get so we've covered some of the deficiencies of
your opponent.
Of your opponent.
What would I do? That's a good question.
On how she has failed to hew to the Republican platform.
Right. Her own
on how the
promises,
Republican Party, especially the neocon wing, has failed to hew to Washingtonian and Jeffersonian diplomacy, and instead have become the nation-building experts, which they're not doing very well at.
Because they've failed at every one of these nation-building wars. They've lost every one of them.
So clearly the budget is a problem. Clearly the cronyism is a problem.
Yeah.
And most of us libertarian-leaning think that the less Washington does, the better. So what would you do differently in Washington? What would you vote for or propose, and what would you work against?
There are so many issues. I'll start with just a few of them. Let's get rid of the Department of Education, block grant the money back to the states and school. We can start there just by getting rid of this excess dead weight that has not improved education.
$74 billion a year for nothing.
Well, we've got a whole set of relationships, so we're going to block grant the money back to the states and the localities. You can't. We got special education and stuff like that. Item 1. Item 2, the power of the purse. This is a very, very big one. Okay, remember when in 2014 we were told, elect Republicans, give us the U.S. Senate, we're going to become Republicans again? The first thing they do is they haul up the white flag at the top, says we're going to vote for all of Obama's budgets. And that's what they did. They voted for Obama's budgets, omnibus and omnibus.
They did actually have a budget. One, I think.
Well, these are the December 2014 and December 2015 votes that Kellyanne voted for with the Democrats. $1.5 trillion additional debt. It's called the power of the purse. The Constitution gives Congress the sole authority to determine budgets. And you know what you do? You raise your hand and you vote no. And you, like the Republicans did when they had spine back in the 90s, they forced Clinton and the Democrats and the rhinos, if you want to call them that, to the bargaining table, and they wound up with 4 years of balanced budgets, a growing economy, and the world did not come to an end. Yeah, there were some brief government shutdowns, right? And what good came out of it? Balanced budgets, growth. So you got to use the power of the purse and bring these folks to the bargaining table. That's item 2 that I do.
How do you stop what is clearly unconstitutional spending by the executive branch?
Power of the purse.
I'm not even going to say just Obama. A lot of these departments are basically on autopilot, and they take the money anyway and spend it anyway, as if there's no shutoff valve in Congress anymore.
Another thing I would do, I'd take this vast fourth branch of government, the regulatory state, which is now crushing small business. We have more businesses dying than being born in America. This is one of the reasons our all the jobs that we've recovered since the bottom of the Great Recession are part-time, transient jobs, lower wages. We don't have a recovered economy for the middle class, so I'm talking middle-class economics here, and I'm not going to get into detail there because it's a long conversation, except to say regulations are excessive, and they are inhibiting small business. I'm proposing that all new regulations, like in the New Hampshire legislature, come back to Congress for an up or down vote. And all existing regulations, every 15 years, sunset and go back to Congress, rewrite them, streamline them, get rid of stuff that's redundant, that doesn't protect human health and safety, up or down vote by Congress for every single regulation over a 15-year cycle. So that's one thing that we can do.
You know, I run into Democratic voters all the time who believe, they just keep hearing, well, the Democrats are promising more funding. And I say, well, you don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg. You don't kill off our small business community, our family-owned businesses.
Right.
Because they tax it. There are 1,000 people a day are moving from Democrat states to Republican states. And they're leaving because of the taxes, the corruption, urban sprawl, traffic congestion, roads and highways are falling apart, the crime's out of control, the revolving door prison system. The main reason is there are no jobs.
Right.
And they're coming to Republican states because one of the things that we do is we create a healthier, more pro-business environment for small businesses. And if you have the lawyers, regulators, bureaucrats, judges, if you have all these state mandates and federal mandates coming down on them, if you kill off the small business community, where are the jobs going to come from? Where's the revenue going to come from?
We have about 30 seconds. How do people reach you?
30 seconds. JimRubens.com. That's real easy. Running against an incumbent. She's got a wall of K Street money, K Street Kelly. JimRubens.com. Looking for volunteers. Small contributions are fantastic. We're all over the state. You can go to my website. You can see where I'm speaking. You can see me face-to-face. Ask questions. Any question on the table. I don't filter questions. JimRubens.com. Thank you, folks, for having me.
Thank you, Jim.
All right.
Thank you, Jim.
Excuse me. Enjoy your weekend, sir.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. We are going to call our next guest, John I haven't done that in a while. John Zimmerak from thestream.org. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. Welcome back to Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteRock.com, Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, and you, our listeners. You can donate to support this program at GraniteRock.com. You can go to CNHT.org and give them some money. They have a fundraiser coming up the Saturday after July 4th. Help support them and the space that we use to broadcast this program every week on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Ustream, and, of course, at GraniteRock.com. Our next guest is the senior editor of thestream.org. He received his BA from Yale University in 1986 and his MFA in screenwriting and fiction and his PhD in English in 1996 from Louisiana State University. He's been press secretary to Pro-Life Louisiana Governor Mike Foster and a reporter and editor at Success Magazine and Investors Business Daily, among other publications. Slow down, Steve. And he's been a regular guest on this program. Please welcome John Zimmerak. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm going to be actually up in lovely Manchester, New Hampshire in a few weeks.
Oh, awesome.
July.
You should let us know when you're going to be up here, because maybe you can come hang out with us.
That'd be fun. It'll be the weekend of July 10th.
July 10th?
So I'll check you out.
Okay, yeah, because we Let me turn your mic on there, Mike. Hang on a second. I got to turn that mic on. I got to turn your mic on. All right.
Yeah, if you can spare us 20 minutes or even a little longer on Saturday the 9th in the morning, we'd love to have you in here and take a seat in our somewhat makeshift studio and participate live. Get your face out there.
Fun.
Alrighty, so this week we're talking about something a little bit different and a little interesting, and I'll just start with the question that you ask in a recent article dated May 30th. Why did experimental science arise in the West?
Yeah, think about this. In the ancient Greece, Plato and Aristotle and all these wonderful plays and poetry, why was it that there was virtually no science? I mean, you have Archimedes, but he was an isolated inventor, kind of tinkering by himself. No one followed up on his discoveries. You never saw universities arise. You never saw places arise that had a tradition of experimentation where one person would follow up on his predecessor's efforts. Look to ancient Egypt, same thing. You look to ancient Babylon, ancient China, ancient India, and then Rome. The first place where we see experimental science become a viable enterprise is in the universities founded by the Christian Church and by monks. We see it in monasteries during the Middle Ages. Rodney Stark, a scholar at Baylor University, a Baptist school down in Texas, wrote a book called The Victory of Reason, where he lays out that the first time we see experimental science is actually in the Middle Ages among the monks. The monks developed the three-field system of agriculture, which involved, keeping part of the field fallow, that doubled food production and largely put a stop to famines. They invented the the iron plow. They invented the horse collar that doesn't choke the horse. All these things enormously increased the food supply in Europe. These are things that the Romans theoretically could have discovered. They just never did. Mechanical clocks, water wheels, eyeglasses, all these things were invented in the Middle Ages. Why was it, a number of authors have asked, that we see science develop in this Christian setting when it never did in all these non-Christian settings?
That is absolutely fascinating. And having sort of toured a couple of museums in China, where they have all sorts of incredible stuff, it's interesting that some of the prized possessions from the recent dynasties are mechanical clocks from Europe.
Right. Now, in China, you had brilliant people and a beautiful culture, but they developed inventions and then they never used them. The Chinese had block printing, which is, they would carve a whole page and then print with it, but they never developed movable type, and they never developed newspapers as a result. Chinese invented...
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please continue.
The Chinese invented gunpowder, and then they used it for fireworks displays. The Chinese developed ships that could sail the ocean, and they did a few Columbus-like explorations, and then they stopped, and they forgot how to make the ships, and they banned it.
They had an emperor who destroyed the maps, by the way, from
That's right.
North America.
That's right. So what was it about Western culture under the influence of the Old and New Testament? And in the article, which is called Abandon God and Science Will Die, I argue that the Jewish view of the world from the book of Genesis on, that the Christians adopted, was very different from the view of the world you see in pagan Greece and Rome and China and Egypt. In all these other cultures, they had a vision of the world as being a series of cycles. Like history would repeat itself, everything would be destroyed, and then it would come back into being. They had the idea of these enormous cycles that the gods or nature would impose upon us, and that we didn't really have any free will. They didn't have the idea that the universe was a rational place made by a rational God who made us rational so that we could understand it. That idea is extremely powerful. The idea that the world is made penetrable to our reason. That encourages you to look at it differently and look at it carefully. And it's where experimental science comes from.
I would say, yeah, if you think about it, you talk about pantheism and then monotheism. Once you get to monotheism, right, you begin to develop this interest in your relationship to the world God has created for you and your desire to explore it. Now, I've heard over and over again, and you don't hear this very often because a classic liberal education has pretty much been erased from public and not private, but public and university education, so people don't ever explore this, but that's very true. I mean, without the monks, the Christian, the churches, they started the universities. Some of these universities refuse to acknowledge that that's where they came from. It's just very surprising.
Yeah, and France in particular, the universities were the place where knowledge which had been gained in the in medieval times was preserved through the Dark Ages. And that contributed incredibly to the jump-starting of progress in the Renaissance.
That's right. But what's interesting about the book, The Victory of Reason, he argues that actually the progress was happening during the Middle Ages. That, in other words, we don't give them credit, but eyeglasses were invented in the Middle Ages, mechanical clocks. All these things were taking place in the Middle Ages. In fact, that the Middle Ages were a period of enormous technical progress compared to the Roman Empire. You think the Roman Empire, all those roads they built across Europe, they were built just for soldiers. Mm-hmm. You actually couldn't transport produce on them. The Romans and Greeks never invented the wheelbarrow. Why didn't they? Because they had tons of slaves who would just do the work. In fact, the existence of slavery was a real drag on technical progress because there was no incentive to find labor-saving devices because labor was cheap.
I talked to a historian who had, I think he had 5 different degrees. He had a couple of different degrees in history. And he was becoming a merchant mariner, and he said that he felt that the reason that the South in the early 1800s didn't advance is that there wasn't any incentive. Neither the slave owner nor the slave has any incentive to invent anything. But up in the North, they have the shortage of manpower back in those days, so they had to automate and industrialize things as much as they could, just as they did in Britain. Britain had restrictions on immigration, so there's a shortage of manpower. So therefore, they had to automate things if they wanted to increase production. Down south, they had widespread slavery, and there were a lot of things that they couldn't do in agricultural society at that time to automate anyway. So there's been a feeling among a growing number of historians that technology does not advance where you have kind of free manpower at the expense of someone's liberty.
Which is interesting because some of the most enterprising entrepreneurs in the Old South were, in fact, the senior slaves, the freed men, the folks that were allowed by their masters to go and sell some of their labor and entrepreneurism off the plantation, as it were, because they were so valuable that they wanted to keep them happy. And there were some like this that were gradually freeing themselves from the shackles. And those folks went out and plied trades.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And the fact that cheap labor cheap labor suppresses innovation because there's no incentive to learn. And it was Christianity that started the abolition of slavery. No one in the ancient world thought about getting rid of slavery, whereas by around the year 1200, there were virtually no slaves in Europe. Unfortunately, when the West discovered America, they were already in contact with the Arabs, and the Arabs had an extensive slave trade in Africa. And that was where Europe sadly rediscovered slavery, was buying them first from the Muslim slave traders and then doing it themselves.
There's on the Dark Ages, I think it's Prager University has a 5-minute video on how they weren't dark, just so people have an opportunity to go look for it. I don't remember the title of it, but I'm pretty sure it was one of those PragerU 5-minute videos. And it is really, I mean, the topic of the Dark Ages is one we don't want to just bail on because it wasn't dark at all. It was actually very enlightening. And this, obviously, the inventions and everything else, but most people have been taught in our public school educations that it's the Dark Ages, and it really wasn't.
There's a great video I was just watching again online about cultural Marxism, and it really took off in America in the 1960s. And it's a revisionist view of history and a revisionist view of the family, and it's about how the modern left is trying to break down the American family, how they're using our public institutions, the divorce industry, the welfare industry, even Hollywood and the entertainment industry, and they're continuing to push this stereotype of the family being terrible and dysfunctional, and men being abusive or aloof or pushovers, and women being schizophrenic, and it really attacks the very core of the American middle class, the core of the American family. And one of the things that they're doing is pushing stereotypes that try to rewrite history and make America out to be the bad guy, and make the Renaissance and the liberty movement out to be the bad guy. What they're trying to push is the notion of collectivism and coercion, instead of pushing the idea of individual liberty. And they're even pushing individual liberty as an idea of more of a libertine movement, that you just kind of do whatever you want with no thought for the consequences.
Yeah,
liberty is to be understood as...
So that is license, not liberty.
Right. And I think...
So what...
Go ahead.
Sorry, what you just described, that kind of propaganda campaign, that's what was done to the Middle Ages. And it was done by people like Voltaire during the Radical Enlightenment. These anti-Christian intellectuals who wanted to impose their utopian ideas, they needed to make the past out to look like one long nightmare from which people like them were going to liberate us.
That sounds familiar. You know, I'm thinking about this in modern terms, and so let's say now we've abolished slavery for the most part. We could say the physical version of it, but yet we've been entering into this form of economic slavery where we have $20 trillion in debt, we have all this spending, we have 94 million people who can't find jobs and have stopped looking. They're becoming dependent on the federal government, and I think that this is I think it'll stifle innovation. Do you agree?
I agree, and I think that the constant mass influx of low-skill immigrants into America is another contributing factor. Every year we bring in more than 1 million immigrants, most of whom are low-skilled, more than half of whom, I believe, didn't finish high school. How does that help the native working class find jobs if there's constant influx of people coming in who will compete with them?
I was also going to say that the university system in its current state is producing completely useless, degreed left-wing propagandists, and
absolutely,
you're getting all the social justice studies folks, and all they could ever do is work for a nonprofit or be a professor or work for government, and of course none of those things are revenue producing.
No.
Yeah.
So the book, which I think is complementary to the one that you just told us, John, is the one from Regnery, a Politically Incorrect Guide series, which I love. Politically Incorrect Guide to the Bible. And I'm pretty sure, and it talks about how science and development originated with Christianity and in the Middle Ages. I'm pretty sure that is also the one that tells the story of the preservation of knowledge in the universities through the French monasteries and universities.
Well, that's interesting. I was also going to recommend the Politically Incorrect Guide to Science by Tom Bethel. And what's funny is I'm writing the Politically Incorrect Guide to the Catholic Church.
Excellent.
And I have to turn it in on Monday.
Oh.
I'm serious. Today, tomorrow, and Monday, I'm finishing the last chapter for the next Politically Incorrect Guide. What a coincidence.
That's awesome.
That is wonderful. I love those. I love the little piggies, which, of course, PIG, Politically Incorrect Guide, with the tips throughout the books. They're totally irreverent, and that's why I love them. I got a shelf full of the things. I need to add a few. And if you send us a tip when it goes up on Amazon, we will post a link to it.
I'll send you a copy, and maybe you can have me on the show.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Is there any chance that the advanced copy would be available before July 9th, and we'll tie it all together?
I doubt that.
No, I don't think it'll be that early. Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely hope for something by the end. There's a
right.
long cycle in the
try
editing
some-
process. So.
There is,
Yeah,
but you can come and give us a preview of what it's about.
I would love to do that. Where are you located again?
We're at 8 North Main Street in Concord, New Hampshire. And,
Okay, I can make it. I'll be staying in Wyndham, but I can make that.
okay, what we'll do is you just my email is steve@granitrock.com, and you just send me whatever, and then we can correspond and,
that'll be
take care
fine.
of that. All right, so we're down to about a minute. Anything else you want to say before we close up?
Just please go to stream.org and look up the article "Abandon God and Science Will Die," and check out the rest of the wonderful stuff at the website.
Okay, John, thanks for being on the program
Thank you,
again.
it's
We look
wonderful.
forward to having you here in person.
That'll be fun.
All
Thank
right,
you.
have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, John Zimrak, stream.org. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and close up with some more legislative brouhaha. Everybody hang on.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. All right, Tay. Final segment. 20 more minutes. Go about your business. GraniteRock.com is responsible, and they do not deny it, for the content of this program. Nobody else is responsible, just us. So anyway, we want to finish up with some legislative stuff. Of course, Max Abramson's our guest host. He's still here. Mike stepped out. He'll be right back. Thanks again to John Zimrak and, of course, Jim Rubens for coming in to talk to us today. So, what we were talking about on the break, a couple of bills we want to talk about real quick.
I told my constituents when I ran, and my campaign signs all say, smaller government, local control. I've been a long-time advocate of getting money, power, and decision-making out of Concord and getting it back down to the local level. And virtually every legislative district in the state, virtually every town suffers from this whole system of having money sucked out of your community into that black hole in Concord. And even though Jasper gave the Democrats everything they wanted, Obamacare, Medicaid expansion, Common Core, huge increases in the budget, went way beyond what the New Hampshire GOP platform allows, and they $12 million in pay raises that they held up the state budget for, they continue putting through supplemental bill after supplemental bill after supplemental bill. And we had a couple go through a couple of weeks ago. One was another $2.1 million for the Police Standards and Training Council up here in Concord. Another one was adding yet another $5 million to DHHS for drug abuse prevention, treatment, and recovery, which I probably voted for that one. However, most of these things going through, another one was SB 485, which I mentioned earlier, which is another $1.5 million in overtime for police around the state to play whack-a-mole with the drug dealers. And, of course, the response from the public online has been, okay, you're going to arrest more and more and more drug dealers, and they're going to keep getting replaced. So it's more money down the tubes, and what it looked like from the outside, according to people, was it looks like another $1.5 million in payoffs for the law enforcement lobby for supporting the right candidates, mostly Democrats and rhinos. Mm-hmm. And having sat in on the hearing myself and being the only person testifying against this extra police overtime.
When's your next arrest?
So, long story short, we voted it down. Jasper's calling us in again June 16th, I think, to have us vote on it again, because we voted it down 3 times, and I guess 4th time's the charm, because Jasper said on the floor, which you're not supposed to do as speaker, if it lost 159 to 160.
That he'll vote for it next time.
He said he would vote. He said he'd vote. Well, he can only cast the vote as a tie vote. He's not supposed to take positions on bills. And he said right after we voted for it, there were boos from the floor, which is almost unheard of. He said if I'd cast the tie-winning vote, I would have voted for this. And the problem is that the speakership is a dictatorship. It's a Jasper-tatorship. And because he's in the back pockets of the prosecutors and union officials and, police chiefs and, the Democrat leadership, Ray Buckley and Steve Shurtleff and so forth. By the way, I got a picture of Steve Shurtleff standing up. I think he wasn't standing up, but I think he put his thumb up or his thumb down, and I made a meme out of it.
Yeah, you sent it to me.
Yep, every single time that Steve Shurtleff, the House Democrat leader, stands up and puts his thumb up, every Democrat, even where you see mixed red and green lights, all the Democrats suddenly turn green. They change their vote to vote yes, otherwise they'll get in trouble. Every time he stands up and puts his thumb down, every single Democrat in the House votes no. And they all lock together as a block.
And how many of the Jaspercrats do the same thing? Who are serving
usually.
Who are serving at the pleasure of Shurtleff?
They vote as Flanagan or Hinch tell them, and usually they make a little side deal up on the 3rd floor, out of sight, out of mind. And what happens is, if Shurtleff goes up and tells Jasper or Flanagan or Hinch to support their anti-gun, pro-abortion, big government, Common Core, Obama Medicaid expansion, $12 million in pay raises, tax increases. They tried to get an 8-cent per gallon gas tax increase through, on top of all the other fee increases. Now, all the real Republicans are voting against these tax and fee increases, and yet all the chairs and vice chairs have to vote with Jasper. So,
which is enough to give the Democrats a majority on most of this stuff.
The reality is it's conservative and libertarian Republicans, about 150 or 100. I'd say about 180 total, roughly. 3/4 of Republicans are either libertarian or conservative or constitutionalist. That's one side. The other side is the Democrats and rhinos. And the Democrats
are about 160.
Okay.
And then you've got this block of about another 80 in the middle, which are the Democrats and the rhinos.
60 some odd votes of rhinos.
Yeah.
And they are either full-blown rhinos or they're just doing what the rhinos are telling them to do.
So people, listen up. If you don't like the way your local squish votes, oppose him. Run somebody. Run a teenager against him even. Somebody who's got convictions.
I am hearing about super districts with, we usually had 350 candidates for 450 spots. I believe that we now have close to 400 already. The filing deadline is June 10th. If you're a gun owner, property rights advocate, if you believe in the Constitution, you want to have an impact, you want to do the right thing, run for State House. And I don't care what district you're in, this year could be winnable, depends on what happens with the Trump turnout. Who knows what the Bernie Sanders people are going to do, but I'll tell you what's happening down ticket is really, really important. And we just don't have, we've had so many votes that come down in the State House to 1 or 2 votes or 3 votes. And your one vote on the floor, your one vote on committee can have a huge impact. So people think they can't win, but we've had dozens of Republican representatives who have really good voting records that come out of these safe Democratic districts. And what's happening is we find this again and again and again. People like Governor Johnson, Governor Gary Weld, they're libertarian Republicans who come from safe Democratic districts, or David Murataki, come from safe Democratic districts, and what we're finding is that Democratic voters greatly prefer libertarian Republicans to these wishy-washy establishment types who don't stand for anything. Because once they see that you stand for anything, they realize you're running for something.
And they realize you're running for something that they want. It brings me back to the Scott Brown example in 2010. The reason Scott Brown won in 2010 wasn't just because Croakley was an awful candidate, but because Scott Brown drove around these middle-class or almost working-class home-owning areas and told him he stood for what they did. He stood for the Constitution. He stood for their gun rights. He stood for less spending. Of course, none of that actually happened when he got there. But that is why he got elected the first time. Me and all my Democrat buddies too was the answer I got at the doors. Which, in Massachusetts, this is how people like Murotake can win, because he stands for something, like you said. And the Democrats if the guy who stands for something stands for some of your values, you're more likely to vote for him than a Democrat who's working against your values.
And the independent voters are more fiscally conservative than either Republicans or Democrats. And they are more socially libertarian than either Republicans or Democrats. And they do not want an interventionist foreign policy. If you look at the independent voters, they're the most libertarian block of voters you'll ever find anywhere in the electorate, other than maybe if you go to the LP convention. But other than that, this is the most libertarian bloc. And what we keep finding again and again and again, the Republicans who are getting elected in safe Democratic districts are libertarian Republicans. They stand for something, they have principles, they stick to free markets. And when you get a wishy-washy establishment type who doesn't stand for anything, he says, "Oh, I'm so moderate." What the signal that sends to people is, "Oh, this is another big business Wall Street Republican. He's just going in to cut my wages." And that's kind of the message that the Democrat Party foists on people. But if you're really there to push for, fight against the breakdown of the American family, what you're fighting against is for traditional values. If you're pro-life, you're pro-gun. If you believe in things, if you're willing to stick out and say, "Hey, I believe in these things. I think we should get out of the UN. I believe in secure borders. I believe we need to do something about this." Then people say, "Hey, there's a guy who's for something. That's why he's running. I'm going to vote for him because I agree with that."
And that's why I was asking Jim Rubens, tell us what you're for as well as what you're against, because, he's got a lot of good positions. He's got a few that people will throw eggs at, but he's got a lot of good positions.
Kelly Ayotte. Can anyone think of one single difference between Kelly Ayotte's voting record and Hillary Clinton?
Or what Maggie Hassan's would be, or Jean Shaheen's has been.
Oh.
Not enough, and that's the point. You're there to stand athwart history yelling stop, and that isn't what happened. The Republicans need to oppose big government, no matter who is pushing it, whether it's George W. Bush with No Child Left Behind, whether it's Barack Obama with the immigration policy, whether it's Obamacare, whatever it is that big government is getting into, it is the responsibility of Republicans to oppose it, and maybe to propose something smaller, cheaper, nimbler, in many cases just to say, hell no, big government doesn't need to do any of this.
Yeah. Hey, Jasper Taters.
Yeah,
the Jasper Tatership.
I like to say, it's a potatorship.
It's a potatorship.
It's a potatorship because it's the POPO, it's the law enforcement lobby, it's the police chiefs association,
the more
it's the attorney general's office, the prosecutors.
The farther to the left you get. I think Potatorship. We definitely need. It is June 10th. We are running out of time. We need people to primary sitting Republicans registered.
If you're out there and you've got principles, register now.
And we can. And if you don't know who to talk to, we can hook you up. The 603 Alliance just sent out a newsletter to help you figure out how to run a campaign. There's a class. There's classes. Lots of classes. Lots of people have classes. If you don't know what to do when you get there, there'll be plenty of people to help you. Just make sure that you find the right resources, because the rhinos, people in leadership, Democrats, will try to intimidate you. No, they won't try. They will. They will intimidate you into doing their bidding. And
you don't need to do what anybody else tells you.
Just think local control.
The districts are
small government.
The districts are small enough for state sovereignty that all you have to do is order 100 signs. That's where the great price break is. Order 100 two-sided corrugated plastic signs, and just go door to door talk to all your friends, tell them you're running for State House, and they'll tell their friends, and their friends will tell their friends, oh, Steve's running for State House. That's what I did in my district. I got 50 signs up in people's front yards. I just said, would you be willing to put a sign up? They said, well, absolutely.
There's a young man in Nashua, if I get the name right, Shane LeGros, just graduated high school, who is looking to run. And I'm going to have him on the show shortly. And Shane, if you're out there listening, don't forget to register, and we will have you on. And you can discuss principles. And that applies to anybody out there, especially the youngsters who are running. We'll catch up with you at a town meeting. We'll have you in here. We'll get your voice out there. If you got a piece on what you stand for, send it to us, and we'll post it up. But most importantly, we want good, enthusiastic, principled legislators.
Important administrative note, most of our listeners, or a good chunk of our listeners, will be at the GOP Clam Bake today, the state committee meeting. It started at 9, I think, and there be whales there, there be rhinos there, and you'll be catching this afterwards. I asked a couple people to let me know.
Yeah. Some of them started in the 60s and the 70s and 80s when there was no internet, and they thought that they could just run as a Republican. They said, hey, here's a safe Republican district. You get guys like Jasper Takazian and Schmidt and all these other guys, and they get in there and they're spending like Democrats.
Well, the thing I wanted to point out is that somebody that we tried to recruit to write for us but never did was Yvonne D. Bailey, and I believe she is supporting Juliana Bergeron for National Committee Woman.
Okay.
And I just wanted to point out that that's a mistake because Juliana Bergeron and the Republican Party platform are at odds with each other.
On pro-life issues particularly.
In particular. I don't care how nice of a person she is. There's other things that I have issues with her. But anyway.
If you have any doubts, the Democrat Party's largest single financial contributor are the trial lawyers. So this whole criminal cartel that has hijacked the Democratic Party, they've learned to use the same, we're going to help people political rhetoric. And they're always talking about unity and fairness and all these nice things. But this criminal cartel, they go tell one group of people one thing and they tell another group of people something else. They tell the environmentalists one thing and they tell the union something else. They tell the NIMBY crowd that we're going to stop all this development, and they go to the big business developers and others and they say, oh, well, that was just pillow talk. We're going to, after the election, we're going to change our, and people call around and sure enough, we've seen again and again and again and again. These quote-unquote Democrat politicians, these don't stand for anything, but it's just easier to get elected as a Democrat, they say one thing to one group and something else to another. When I go door to door, I keep hearing the same thing. Oh, my Democratic opponent said he was going to do this, and then I go to the next door, Democratic opponent, the same person said that they were going to do just the opposite. And they're telling one group of people one thing, they're telling another group of people the other thing, at least with Republicans or principled Republicans. They stick by the same thing. They're not going to change their position.
Excuse me. All right, so remember, June 10th.
You must register, else you cannot run.
Hopefully we'll have some stories from the committee meeting.
So absolutely, we're looking for stories from the committee meeting out there where there be rhinos, dragons, whales, whatever.
There be rhinos.
At the clam bake. Any signs of any good stories of malfeasance will be very welcome here. So send them over.
I was told to expect. Somebody asked me if I think it was Fran Wendelblow said, "Are you guys going to be there by chance?" And they wouldn't let us in if we tried at this point. But even as media, they'd be like, "Nope." But no, we weren't going to be there. But she's like, "There's probably going to be some crazy stuff going on."
Send the stories.
So,
Nancy Stiles just told us that she is not going to run for another term for family reasons. She is one of the hardest working state senators, but her voting record is okay, but it could have been better. I wouldn't go so far as to say she's a rhino. She's definitely a moderate. She had a 57% voting record.
I hold her responsible for Medicaid expansion, because her insistence on voting for either a Democrat or a Republican Medicaid expansion plan was part of the reason why we had to have Well, part of the reason why Bradley came along and said, well, we'll make our own plan, and you can vote for that, which has led us to where we are today, which is we have Medicaid expansion.
I blame Jasper and Umberger for the Umberger Amendment.
Well, see,
because
before
we got
Jasper,
the worst version of Medicaid expansion.
Yeah, but see, if Nancy Stiles hadn't, before Jasper even became Speaker, the session before is the first time they passed it. If she had said she would vote no, or if somebody in the state in the state Senate had applied pressure to her and what's his face, he retired. I forgot who else it was. No, there was another state senator, it was a Republican, that said they were going to vote for it. Morris? No, it wasn't Morris. There were two, and one of them didn't run for this session. But they said they were going to vote for a Medicaid expansion program no matter what. And they didn't have that, gave them enough votes with the Democrats that were there. They were all going to vote for it, so there was no way to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, that was
they
a classic
are responsible
case
for us having this. If they had said no then, it would have been a lot harder this time around to get to where we are.
It was a classic case of, if you can't support the Democrats' bill, write a bill that sounds different but actually gives the Democrats everything they want, and they'll all vote for it. And
all right.
So they did.
We're out of time. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max.
Have a great weekend. We will be back next week with more news, more politics, more conversation, more rock talk.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Some of the content on this program is shared under the fair use provision of U.S. copyright law, found free in the public domain, or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.